Welcome to the Co-Movement Gym podcast. This week we are talking with Tyler Peters. Tyler recently completed a 1,267-mile bike ride from Upstate New York to Jacksonville, Florida in just 14 days. In addition to that, Tyler ran the 15K Boilermaker in Utica this past year in 60 minutes and placed fifth at the Brookfield Classic 50K trail run. Tyler is an entrepreneur, crazy athlete, and overall great guy. I hope you enjoy this conversation. Tyler, welcome to the Co-Movement Gym podcast. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great.
All right, man. So you've done some really cool shit that I want to talk about. The first being that you rode your bike from Vernon, right? Or Balkville area in central New York all the way to Jacksonville, Florida, right?
Correct. Yes, I left from my mom's house in Balkville. It was, and I made it to Jacksonville, Florida. Total of 1,267 miles, give or take. Somewhere's in there. That's what the GPS said in the beginning, but there was a lot of detours.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that today. So the first thing, though, leading up to this conversation with you, I was really interested what sparked the idea to do this, right? Because all of us are motivated by different things. You know, we're busy with life and, but there's something generally that catapults people into especially bigger adventures like this. Like, what, you woke up one day and like, what happened?
I mean, it's literally just like that. I woke up one day and said, I've always been pushing myself, but I just was like, I think I can ride my bike to Florida. I've been a runner for a long time, and one of my favorite things about running is seeing things as you're running. And I wanted to go a far distance, and I knew running to Florida would take too long, so I did the next best thing. I mean, there really wasn't a main reason for me to leave. I just like to challenge myself.
How much planning did you do going into it? Because I know when you posted it on Facebook, you had posted 14 days was your goal.
Yep.
Like, did you have a route going in, or did you figure it out per day? Like, how much planning did you do?
So I went on Google Maps and just typed in Jacksonville, Florida, and I just hit the bike route. And that's what I went off of. But I mean, other than that, I really didn't prepare. I just there was so much time going into it. Every time I was thinking of the trip, I would stress out a little bit. And I'm just like, I don't think there's a point in even thinking about it because it's not going to go how I plan it to go. So I kind of went day by day. That's what I ended up figuring I should do.
But what was the number one unknown that happened during the trip for you? Because like you had said, you can't plan everything perfectly. What was the number one thing that surprised you that didn't go so well?
That didn't go so well would be how hard to sleep it is outside at night when you're on the side of the road in a tent or a hammock. I thought it was going to be a lot easier after riding bike all day, but it was really, really hard. Waking up in the mornings was very hard. I thought I was going to wake up with a smile on my face every day, but it didn't go like that.
Do you think that it was the traffic noise or what? Like, I'm curious as to what made that hard for you.
Just the whole fact of like being out there in the whole, like, I don't know, you don't realize how far away you are until, I don't know, it's really hard to explain the actual feeling.
Yeah, I can only imagine. You're not with anyone. You're by yourself. You're on the side of a road, right? Like we don't need to dive too deep into the unknown there, but yeah, that's interesting. So, out of the number of nights that you slept out there, 13 or 14 nights, how many nights did you get a good night's sleep?
So I didn't actually sleep out there all 14 nights. I planned on sleeping out there all 14 nights. I ended up getting some cheap motels along the way, which that honestly helped me out a lot. That kind of like rebooted me every time I'd get an actual bed. It made me a little more motivated getting a bed. So that was really nice. Good night's sleep. I probably didn't get one good night's sleep until I was done with the trip. I was waking up all night long. It was hard to sleep, especially outside. That was really rough sleeping out there. I mean, it was 27 degrees, I think 2 or 3 nights in a row. There was frost on the ground until 10 in the morning. It was really cold out. It poured on me a bunch of times. Found out the first night I left that my tent wasn't waterproof. I woke up in the morning in water in my tent. So
Yeah,
that was night one.
Yeah, I remember seeing that. It was a rough start for you, for sure. It's so when you were getting up these mornings, you were obviously sore. You were not sleeping well. You were away from home. What did you tell yourself every morning to how to just get up and keep going forward? Like what was going through your head?
Um, just make it to Florida, I guess. I mean, like what I tell people too is one thing I tell people is my emotions changed probably every 10 to 15 minutes. One day I have 1 minute, I'm super low. 1 minute, I feel like a child and I'm just riding my bike and having a fun time. So sometimes once I got that moment of like the excitement, I usually tried to carry it out for a little bit. And that emotion didn't change until like I started to get pretty tired, I guess, usually, which again, that happened pretty fast.
Mm-hmm. So you got through day one. How many miles did you cover day one?
Day one, I covered 89 miles.
Mm-hmm. When did the discomfort start to settle in terms of your ass, right? Like, didn't you have like
Yeah.
obviously anyone that's rode a bike a lot? I've obviously not completed a journey such as yours, but I've spent time on a bike, and that is a issue for sure. Tell me about like when did that start for you, and how bad did that discomfort get?
I realized I was going to have a long journey right when I got to about Norwich, which is about 30 miles away from where I started. After that, I was like, I should have thought this a little through. And then it got really bad, I think, the morning of day three. The morning of day three, I mean, I I looked at it. It was my butt was a different color. It was beyond bruised. I couldn't walk. I couldn't sit. When I was riding my bike, I found myself sitting like off to the side for like a couple days. I mean, it was very bad. But then honestly, about a week in, it just went completely numb. And now I can ride my bike as far as I want. And I don't feel anything.
Well, you know, Dan Williams, right? From
Yes.
Deansboro. I'm assuming, yeah. Well, Dan has been on the podcast. He's been a longtime friend of mine, and he rode his bike from Deansboro to the West Coast, I think, up through Canada. And he said the exact same thing what you just said, that about a week in, he could go forever. And, you know, he was calloused over and he was good to go with that. So it's funny that you gave the same response. Yeah.
Yeah, I was honestly worried because I didn't know if it was gonna callus over anything. In my head, I was like, I'm assuming it was gonna go numb, but in the moments when you're sitting on the seat, you're just like, this pain's never gonna go away.
Did
I
you,
did wrap my sweatshirt around the seat for a little bit, and that helped out a lot. That did help, but I didn't do that for until about day three. Just because, I mean, every day leading up to it, I kept telling myself, like, if I have to wrap my sweatshirt around the seat on day two, this is going to be a really long journey. So I tried to not do it until I absolutely had to. Then I gave in and did it. And then, like I say, a couple days after that, it's just one morning I woke up, I forgot to put the sweatshirt on my seat, and I honestly didn't even realize I didn't put the sweatshirt on my seat for a couple hours. And I was like, wow, it's actually numb now.
did you get like professionally fitted for this bike or no?
No, I bought this bike 2 weeks before I left. I, I was gonna do it on my mountain bike, but I got talking with some people, and they said I should probably do it on a road bike, and I agreed with them. So one of my buddies told me he had a road bike for sale, so I bought one of his used bike off him, and I called Dick and Sonny's in New Hartford up and asked them like if they had some time to look at a bike, and they said they were out a little bit, and I told them what I was doing, and they're like, just get your bike here. And I brought it there, and I picked it up the day before I left, and they got me new tires and some tubes and some little tools and all that stuff to set me right up, and away I went. There was, like I said, there was no planning towards this trip. I mean, there was no planning, there was no training besides my like daily activity, daily exercise, all my running. I just figured if it's a 14-day long trip. I started like talking about this trip about 5 months before I left, and I didn't think 5 months of like training with the time I had was going to really do too much for the whole trip. So I just figured keep continuing my daily activity, and I'll make it.
hmm Was it ever? I was talking to a few of our trainers at the gym here about this journey, and like, did it ever turn into an issue with lack of fitness capabilities, or was it more just the whole process of camping and finding food and the discomfort with your ass, like, or was it ever a lack of like, holy shit, my legs are blown out, I'm super fatigued, like how was that, like what was more of a struggle?
Mental. Honestly,
Yeah.
physically, I was pretty good the whole time. Don't get me wrong,
Mhm.
my legs burned and it did get hard to walk when I was done pedaling, but the pedaling part was it was like I could pedal all day. But it was when I stopped pedaling is when it hurt the most. When I wasn't on the bike is when I was more sore. When if I could literally once I start pedaling, I could pedal for felt like I could pedal for 5 hours straight and not blink an eye. But it was when I pull up to a stop sign and have to put my feet down and then start pedaling again. Once I start pedaling, you get a leg burn for about 15 cranks. And then it was just numb again. I mean, yeah, like I said, physically, I made it physically, but it was a lot of it was the mental, just the burning, the draining, like the bad sleeping at night. That had a little to do with my physical, but that was more mental. Bad sleep at night, I was waking up not as happy or something like that. So I was trying to get myself in the right mindset. So I mean, realistically, I was good.
Mhm. Let's talk about what you packed, because you were obviously carrying what you had on your back for the trip and on your bike. So go through the list of what you brought with you.
Okay. I brought a hammock, a tent, a mat to sleep on, a sleeping bag. Um, I brought a toolkit for my bike to like change tires, anything I need to do with that. Um, Battery packs. That was a main thing too for my phone because just being out there in the woods or being on like side roads or country roads, I wasn't around outlets or I was also pedaling 8 hours a day. Um, So that's all the stuff I had on my bike. And then in my book bag, I had clothes. I brought one set of clothes to wear during the day, and I brought a set of clothes to wear at night because I was pretty dirty every day. Of warm sweatshirts. I did bring a few sweatshirts to stay warm because I knew it was going to be cold. Um, I mean, I don't think there was much more. That's about all I
Mhm.
brought. I tried to pack as light as possible. My clothes took
How
up
did
most of my
you
space.
how did you wash your dirty clothes? Was it in like a tub and the hotels that you stayed in occasionally?
Yeah, bathroom sink. I
Hmm.
just would put it
Hmm.
in there and bring it out. I mean, honestly, I went into the whole mindset of like not even getting a hotel. So bathroom sink was cleaner than I ever imagined I was going to be. Realistically, I mean, yeah, my plan was to rough it the whole way. I wanted to only, if I ever do something like that again, I would probably bring less clothes because I
Hmm.
realized how, like, when I'd stop at the store or something at night and put stuff in my book bag, everything was jam packed in there. And I feel like I kind of feel like I even brought too much on the journey.
Hmm. What did you do for food? Obviously, you're biking almost 100 miles a day. You're burning a tremendous amount of calories. Like I would say in the range of like probably 6 to 8,000. It's a random guess, but probably close to that. What did you do for food?
Gas stations and fast food for usually my breakfast and lunch. And then my dinners, I tried really hard to find a place that had like an actual meal. And I would eat meat. Like I don't I don't know much about like what you're supposed to do for training or anything like that. Honestly, when I did that 50K that you put on, I learned so much about that. I didn't know I never realized how important all that was. So one of my biggest fears about the whole journey was not having enough food or water in my body because I was so scared of hitting a wall like I did in that race. Because that if I hit that wall, I'd be done for again because that was very brutal. So I made sure to eat. as much as I could every time I was stopping.
Mhm.
Yeah, like say
Did you
dinners would be, I would try to go get like some ribs or a steak or something like that.
Mhm. Did you lose weight when you over the 2 weeks or no?
I gained 15 pounds.
For real?
Swear to God.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's
I
I can't
I would
believe
have lost a lot of money on that if we had bet on that. I would have guessed that you lost 10 to 15 pounds.
I weighed 147 pounds the day I left, and I came back at 163. So
So,
whatever that math is.
well, let's talk about that because I find that very interesting. And I'm sure a lot of people that geek out to like calorie consumption and stuff will find that interesting. So, you were biking about 100 miles a day for 2 weeks. You gained 15 pounds, which means you had to be taking in an excess of calories to gain weight. So, I'm assuming you were eating a lot
Yes.
each day.
Oh yeah. I've never ate so much in my life. I've never been so hungry at every moment of the day. And
Okay.
every time I was hungry, I told myself to eat because like when I'm at home, when I'm working, like when I climb trees, if I'm hungry or like I don't eat lunch when I work because like I usually think a lot and I just. But this trip, like like I said, I've never had an appetite. I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was maybe just the fact that I'm riding a bike and eating was almost a comfort thing too, because it made you almost forget about like being on the road. I don't know. You're comfortable when you eat. People are. So it did help out, but I mean, I have no clue why I was eating so much, but
Yeah, well, that's good. That's probably part of why you were successful. Have you lost the weight after coming home?
I'm down to 155.
Okay, okay,
Yeah,
yeah, that's
I
very.
just started this thing. I'm trying to do a 5K a day, and I'm on day 6.
You're trying to run a
Run a
5K a
5K.
day.
Yeah, well, I've been running 30 minutes a day for 6 days now.
Okay, how long are you going to do that for?
30 days,
30 days. Okay.
just for fun.
It's so cool, dude. All right, man. Well, we've got a lot to get to. So let's just keep rolling on. We could talk about all this so much more, but so you experienced some difficulty above and beyond what we've already talked about. But like, tell me about the bike tube issue and some flats.
Yes. I went through 5 tubes. I never imagined I was going to get as many flat tires. That's one thing. If I ever do something like this again, I am bringing a lot more tubes because there was one point I ran out. I went through 3 tubes. I went through all the tubes that I brought on the journey, and I was actually pushing. I was on the side of the road in South Carolina, I think it was, and I had no more tubes. I had a flat tire, so a Dick's Sporting Goods was 10 miles away, and I was literally pushing my bike down the road 10 miles to Dick's Sporting Goods, and some guy ended up pulling over, and he offered a ride, or he offered to bring me to Dick's Sporting Goods, and I got the tubes, and he brought me back to the spot he picked me up from, which that was the one request I had if he was going to help me, and he was a great guy and helped me out with it. But I mean, I didn't prepare for that many flat tires or all that stuff to actually go on like that. What everybody, people kept asking me, like, are you going to bring extra tubes? Are you going to bring extra stuff? I kept telling them, well, if I bring an extra tube, I might as well bring an extra chain. If I bring an extra chain, I might as well bring an extra pedal. If I bring an extra pedal, I might as well bring an extra everything. So in my head, I was just like, don't over prepare. But I guess the tubes I should have over prepared for.
Mm-hmm. I remember, I think it was going into the last day. I don't know if you were out of tubes or whatever, but you had posted, maybe it was on Instagram or Facebook, that if you got another flat, that you were just going to run the rest of the way to Jacksonville. I think you had maybe 30 miles to go. Is that about right?
Yeah, what I told myself is because I ended up getting I had 2 more tubes left after the guy brought me to Dick's Sporting Goods. I bought tubes. So then I ended up going through both those tubes within 20 miles. I got 2 flat tires within 20 miles. And I think I was 100 and something miles away. So then on the last day there, what I told myself after that is if I make it within like 50 to 100 miles, like I'm just going to run it. I was getting there one way or another. I wasn't going to deal with the bike because when you get 2 flat tires in a row, you're just like, am I ever going to get there now? And that's the thing, like one thing, like getting that flat tire and having to get brought to Dick's Sporting Goods, I mean, that put me 3 hours behind almost, just because of the area we were in, where I had to change the tire and everything. And every second counts when you're riding a bike.
Oh,
It's
for
not
sure.
like, oh, I can just casually go 5 miles away and go pick something up. It's that 5 miles, you're going to be feeling every foot of it.
Well, yeah, and I'll add to that for people, for the listeners that haven't maybe completed strenuous adventures such as this, obviously, or just anything. You're already really tired, right? Like you haven't been home, like, and you're getting these flats, which a flat is a pain in the ass. Like I got a flat on 315 in Deansboro the very last day of the biking season for me, and it's just a pain. It's a morale, like uh you just feel like you're just losing.
Yes,
And
that's literally the
you
best way to explain it. When I
yeah
when I
and I
got that
and
flat tire, when I got my last flat tire, and I got it on the side of a highway that I probably wasn't even supposed to be on. The speed limit was 65 miles an hour. There was absolutely no shoulder. It was kind of like being on the side of the New York State Thruway, just pushing a bike down the side of the road. So I'm on there's probably about a foot or two of blacktop that I can ride on. And then it's grass or the rumble strips on the left. And what I found out is that little foot or two right there is like a trap for all the screws, nails,
yep.
glass, and everything. So I got my last flat tire on that, and I still had about 9 miles left on that journey or on that road. So when I got the last one, I put my last tube on, and I actually walked my bike 9 miles off that road. Because again,
Wow.
once you get that flat tire, you don't. That's when you feel like you're out there. That's when you feel like you're alone because you're just. I put my last tube in it, and then I'm like, well, if I get one more flat tire, chances are, I got really lucky with that one guy stopping on the side of the road and asking if I needed help. I'm on the side of a highway. No one's going to stop and ask me if I need help, unless it's a cop. But then they're probably going to tell me I had to get off that road because I probably wasn't even supposed to be on that road.
Yeah, they probably would have given you a ticket and left.
Yeah. I was really concerned because like I wouldn't have cared as much about the ticket. I was more worried that they were gonna drive me off that road. Tell me to get in
Sure.
and get me off. And my thing is there is not 1 mile on this trip that I wanted to cheat. I rode from the whole way. So even if the cop brought me to the next exit 9 miles away, in my own head, I still wouldn't be completed for me.
Yeah, I completely understand that. What was the most favorite part as far as location goes? You posted some beautiful pictures, some scenery. One point you had a video of you riding over, I don't know if it was a bridge or near the ocean or something. What was your favorite section or day?
South Carolina, and it was going over. I think it's called Lake Moran. And that's when I was in a really good spirit. It was actually a really good day because one of my buddies surprised me. He drove all the way from Rhode Island to come down and follow me for a day, and it was the day he was down there, so I was in just a great spirit. I mean, this was completely unexpected. I woke up to a text message from Google Maps, and he had a circle where he was and at my location. So instantly, I was in just a great mood that day. The sun is out, finally warm weather because like the week before was very cold. So going over this big long bridge over a beautiful lake, just in just a great spirit, that made my journey. That was the feeling I was looking for when I left. Like that's just a free feeling of being out there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think
Yeah, I got
that was day nine or 10, I think.
Yeah, I got that from your post. It seemed like at that point you were really starting to enjoy it, and I was living vicariously through you. That was very cool. Was there any people that you met along the way that stand out, just through whether it was a conversation at a hotel, a restaurant, a truck stop? Was there any people that stand out?
Yes, down in Fayetteville, North Carolina, I met this amazing group of people when I went out to dinner one night. And I mean, I can't remember any of their names, but like I walked into this place and it was like a really small little place. There's maybe 10 people in there. And when I walked in, like, I mean, they all knew I wasn't from there. So it was like everybody kind of looked at me and I was sitting down for maybe 10, 15 minutes and some gentleman walked up to me and before you know it, we started talking and then he invited me over to his group, and before you know it, everybody at the place, they absolutely loved me. They they bought me dinner. They were videotaping me, getting pictures with me and everything. And it's just, I felt so welcomed there. I couldn't believe how welcomed I felt. I mean, I woke up, I met a woman that night, and I was told her what I was doing, and she was the sweetest woman in the world. She brought me a pound of ham the next morning, a loaf of bread, and a bag of walnuts because she just wanted to make sure I was full. And I couldn't believe it. She said she was going to. I didn't really think anything of it. I gave her my number, and she called me in the morning. And I mean, I couldn't believe it. I thought it was just gonna be one of those things where you just talk about, oh, I'll help you out, but no, she actually did. And it was just like she cared for a second. I don't know, and that
Mhm.
was once. It's like once I got past Virginia, the people were so nice. Everywhere I went, I was riding bike in South Carolina. I'm riding down this long highway, and a car pulls up next to me, and this woman asked me if I was hungry. She offered to feed me in the middle of the road. Just asked if I was hungry. I was like, I just ate, but when she pulled away, I said thank you and everything. When she pulled away, I'm just thinking like, wow, people, I didn't get that in New York. In New York, people are blowing their horn by me. It was the first, like I say, all the way down. Once I got to Virginia, it was completely different. People were so nice.
Yeah, I've noticed that for sure myself, like just traveling through different states and different things through the years. Yeah, the farther south you go, a lot of times the people get nicer and more hospitable.
Yes.
So that's really cool that you got to feel that too. That's cool. Let's talk about like you've obviously completed some great physical accomplishments above and beyond this. You 60-minute Boilermaker, which is unbelievably fast. The Brookfield 50K, which coming into that, you had never run over 10 miles. And then you decide to run almost 31. So, like, you're obviously doing, it's not just mental. Obviously, we know you're extremely mentally tough, but you can't like just get lucky in those kinds of events and post those kinds of performances. So, like, what does your weekly training look like? I know, and we're going to get into this later in the conversation. You obviously have a very physical job, but that doesn't make you a good runner, a biker. Like, what do you do for training week to week?
I usually run between 10 to 15 miles a week. But I mean, really, climbing trees is so physically demanding and just on my body. But I mean, my whole life, I've always been playing. I've always been running around. So I've always been physically in shape. I still think it's all mental. I mean, everything is mental to me. Even when it comes to my running, that's a mental game. Um, like that 50K, when I did that, I mean, I just told myself that if I can't do that, I probably shouldn't ride my bike to Florida. So it was more just like, even if I physically wasn't fit for it, it was all mind over matter at that point. It was just keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. But yeah, I mean, I guess all I really do is work and run. I don't really do too much. But when I train or when I work, I give 100% every single time. Like when I do every run I do every day, they're not slow. They are as fast as I can possibly go, pushing as hard as I can every single time.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's so much there from a coaching standpoint that's interesting to me. Um, did you play sports in high school?
Yeah, I played baseball. I played soccer too. I played soccer for 2 years, but I played baseball for a while.
Yeah, wow, that's fascinating to me. Boy, I would say then from a coaching standpoint, you probably have a tremendous amount of unrealized potential, Tyler. There's a lot of really good things you're doing, but I would imagine in 5 to 10 years from now, like where you could be with running and certain things. That is so cool.
Well, I'm trying to push my running a little harder now. Now after I'm trying to get more serious into what I'm doing. Like I want to when it comes to running, um, I tell people I started running because it's free. I mean, I buy a pair of my shoes and after I get out of work, I get to go run. So it was more like I just ran for a lot of fun and everything. But now I want to get into I want to focus on the diet, the nutrition, and everything. I want to because I feel like I've kind of not maxed out at what I can do with what I'm doing. But I feel like if I want to get better, that would be the next step, and I got to start paying more attention to things like that.
Yep. So I completely agree. The cool thing is like your base level fitness is obviously phenomenal. And you're not really following a nutrition plan or a training plan, like you're training and working really hard. But it'd be really cool to see what happens when you start to hone in on some of this stuff. Like, I'm not even saying if you go super specific, I'm just saying like 80% like dialed in. I think that some really cool things can happen for you. Do you strength train at all? Like, I know you have a very physical job cutting trees, but do you do anything in the gym, or is it just strictly manual labor during the day and then run?
Push-ups, pull-ups, sit-ups. I don't know how to use any of the machines, so like
Mhm.
I just go like I go to like Planet Fitness and I go to like little 360 room, and I like the workouts that use my own body. I don't just because I always try to relate that back towards my work, because in my work I'm just using my own body to throw around. So I mean it'd be cool to like lift big weights and everything, but I'm not it really as much into that. I like doing what I can do with my own body.
Yeah, I completely understand that completely. How do you work 8+ hours a day, chainsawing trees, climbing trees, and then have the motivation to go out and run and burn more calories? Like, obviously, I'm older than you by 20 years or 15 years, but like, how do you do that? Like, is it hard day on days, or do you just go and do more shit?
No, it's hard.
Okay.
It is hard. There's a lot of days that I just don't want to run. There's a lot of days, but I always remember the feeling you get after you run. That like
Mhm.
on top of the world. Doesn't matter if I just work a 12-hour day. Doesn't matter if I spend 8 hours in a harness. I'll get out of that. I'll be dreading that run, putting on my shoes, but then I'll go run 5 miles. And the second you get that runner's high at about, I always get it at about mile 2, mile 3 is when I start to like feel really good, and then it's just that carries it. I just know that it's in the end I'll be happy. That's what I tell myself. When it's done, I'll be happy. It's just 30 minutes. It's just 30 minutes. So it's to me, it's just mental.
Yeah, well, that's really good to hear that. It makes you a little bit more human. All right, Tyler. So I'm curious. We're gonna get into a bunch of really cool stuff here, but like before we wrap up some more of this fitness stuff, what's your next big adventure? What are you gonna be looking at doing here in the future? Anything lined up?
Um, the Grand Canyon. I want to hike the whole Grand Canyon. That's what I'm gonna try to do this summer.
Hmm. Tell me about that. I'm not familiar with that. So hike the Grand Canyon, like miles, days, like what is that? What is that adventure?
I want to go from one side of it to the other. I saw something on Facebook about someone doing it, and I called it like the rim to rim. It was like a 50-mile hike or something like that. Like it's not like really a big journey, but um,
Mhm.
that's my next plan is something like that this summer.
Okay, so this is really coincidental that you just brought this up randomly. I had no idea about this, but you know the co-director of the Brookfield Classic with me, Bob Belinsky, the trail
Yeah,
runner from Garage Gym Oneida. He, I'm pretty sure he just did, I think, a 2-week trip out to Arizona and all over the place with his fiance, and I think he ran the rim to rim. I'm
did you
almost.
do that?
Did you
Okay,
see that
I
or
saw.
no?
Yeah, I saw that he was there, but I didn't know what exactly he did. I saw all the pictures and everything. Then I saw somebody else post something about a rim to rim journey at the Grand Canyon, and I'm like, that would be really cool. I mean, I've never been to the Grand Canyon, so I figured I never got to go again if I do the whole thing. I've seen the whole thing.
Oh
That's
yeah,
like my
no,
plan.
it looks completely epic. And maybe Bob didn't do it. I know that it was on his list to do, and I know he got sick when he was out there, so I'm not sure if he did. So I'm sure I'll be corrected on this, or when I talk to Bob, I'll let you know. But that would be a really good guy to talk with about that adventure. He could help you, I'm sure. But yeah, that sounds very cool, Tyler. I like it. Um, Back pain, headaches, and discomfort plague the majority of humans walking around each day. Chiropractic care can be the solution to feeling your best. I know for me personally, it has had a huge impact on how I feel day to day. The problem is that many people fear going to the chiropractor and getting their first adjustment. The team at Lombardi Chiropractic are the best of the best, a team that I've worked with for over 12 years. Visit their website at lombardichiropractic.com, and when you call, let them know you are a listener of the Co-Movement Gym podcast. The majority of supplements on the market are junk and a waste of money. Lack of regulation allows these companies to sell cardboard and a pill, and they get away with it. It's important to purchase your supplements from a company you trust, which for us at Co-Movement is Native Path Supplements. Shop their products at nativepath.com and use code COMO15 for a nice discount at checkout. That's COMO 15. So let's switch gears here. Tell me about your tree cutting business. You're an entrepreneur, which I think is awesome. So am I. Tell me about your business.
I started it about 6 years ago. I've been cutting trees for, I've been doing this stuff since I was like 13, been on jobs. So it's really all I know. One day I just kind of woke up and was like, I was ready to take the next step. I've worked for so many different companies locally, done tree work from like Lake Ontario to Pennsylvania. So I've been around the block a couple times, and I figured it was time I could, take the next step in doing it. So one day I kind of just went out and started advertising, started my business, and it's a mental thing. You got to treat your business like you treat you got to give it your all. Just like I give my running my all my exercising my all. You got to give your business your all. If you want it to succeed, you'll get out what you give it to it. Mm-hmm. So I just when I started it was just full bore. All my time, all my money, everything I had went into the business, and running a business is more mentally harder than riding a bike to Florida. So like riding bike to Florida mentally was easier. It was, don't get me wrong, it was harder, but just running a business when that's your actual life, that's a big deal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I understand that. So how old were you when you started working for yourself full time? 21, 22?
22, I think. I think it was 22.
22. Do you have employees or people that help you?
Yes, two.
Okay. Wow. That's great. So I've seen a lot of, and you post a lot of stuff online with some crazy videos. Like you climb, you're not just cutting trees at the base and having them tip over. Like you're up 40, 50, 60 feet with a rope and all your climbing stuff and a chainsaw. And there's a lot of skill and knowledge that goes into taking these large trees down near buildings and vehicles and roads. How did you learn that? Was that just basically working for the different people through the years? Like that's a very unique skill set, and it's a skill set that has a very high level of consequences if you mess up.
Yes. Well, you usually only mess up once because you don't get a second chance. I learned from a guy. He was he's one of the best around. I watched him my whole life. I learned the old school way. It was get out there, do it. In the beginning of my tree work career, like when I first started doing it for another company, I never imagined it was going to be my whole life. But then there was one day I kind of woke up and was like, this is probably what I'm going to be doing for my whole life. So I started focusing more, watching more, and everything like that. But I learned everything just by watching, just by working with other companies, watching other people, YouTube. I mean, when I watch like a video or when I watch someone, I'm not just watching them do something. I'm watching why they're doing it like that. Because there's 1,000 different ways to cut down a tree. Not saying anyone's different or wrong, but I just got to plug in my phone really, really quick. It's gonna.
Yeah, buddy.
Again, I prepared for this podcast kind of like I prepared for my bike run. Okay, there we go.
Yeah, it's okay. So yeah, you learned from some great people, it sounds like. I know you posted this week about a mistake that you had made, I don't know how many years ago. And it was funny, the video that you posted, I didn't know what the mistake was. I didn't know what you did wrong. And I think it was something quite technical. So you were in a tree, um, having difficulty with something, and you had said like this was like the one mistake that you made and like got through it. So tell me about that mistake and what was it? Because I watched the video twice and I had no idea what you did wrong.
Okay, so I was we just topped the tree and we were lowering down some logs. So we were negative rigging the tree, which is just roping off the stem that I'm still standing on. So I was tied into the log I was cutting. And if I continued the cut, as the log went over, I was tied to that log. So when that log hit the ground, I was hitting the ground with it. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, it
So
would have
you were
pulled me
you were
out of the tree, and it would have made.
you,
I would have fell 70 feet.
you were anchored to the part that you were cutting
Yeah.
off.
Yes, I was rushing and I forgot to untie myself.
Oh, damn. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's why I say like really like that was a mistake, but I caught it before it was a mistake. Because like I said, you get one chance. You get one chance. That was going to be a ride of a lifetime. And like people are like, oh man, aren't you like, I mean, suddenly like if I hit the ground, suddenly it's not my problem anymore. But it's everybody else who's on the ground. That's my fear, is everybody else dealing with the problem. I mean, like I say, if I hit the ground, that's not my problem. But it's everybody else that would have to deal with what just
Sure.
happened. That's what
Sure.
keeps me going and keeps me so safe.
Sure. And yeah, well, it sounds like you take it very, very seriously, which you should. And you're very good at what you do. So that's very good to hear that. What is your 10-year vision with your company? You're so young, you have so much potential. Do you have a vision that extends out like 10 years or so, or what?
Yeah, I got goals. It's honestly, I don't want to be much bigger than I am. I like the way I run my business right now. I'd like some newer equipment, maybe a lift, so I don't have to climb every day as much. And plus, it'd be easier for someone else to get in a tree too, like with a lift. Because I mean, what I do, I mean, I got 10 years of experience under my belt in a harness, so I could never just give someone a harness and expect them to do what I do. But a lift is a lot easier, and it's a lot easier to find someone to operate it. Other than that, yeah, I just keep doing what I'm doing, keep doing great work. I don't want a company with 5 crews or anything like that. That's too much stress, too much to manage. Plus, I wouldn't be able to ride my bike across country again if I had all that to manage. So I like where I'm at right now. I'm pretty happy, very happy actually.
That's really cool, what you just said. So, like, what you're describing is a business that you run successfully, but also gives you the freedom to enjoy life, which a lot of people miss out on that, whether you're an employee or self-employed. And that's really what I do here to some extent. Obviously, I work a lot, but for 13 years, I've wanted to always balance work and the ability to play. And when I've had opportunities to get way bigger with multiple locations, maybe more, contractors, employees, trainers, um, I've dabbled with different things, and I find that balance gets skewed really fast. And so there's a lot to be said for living a life that you're successful career wise, but also able to balance the adventures and a future family for you, right? Like all of that is really huge. And for you being so young to realize that, I give you a lot of credit.
Well, thank you. Yeah. Well, when I first started my business, my business took over my life for a minute. Because like before that,
Mhm.
I was always really adventurous. But then like the first 2 or 3 years of my business, I kind of like I lost it for a minute. And then in the past couple of years, I've been getting it back, figuring the balance part out. And even like this bike trip to Florida, like one little thing was like I guess one little reason why I did it too is to forget about work, forget about everything. Because I knew once I jump on that bike, like I'm not going to think of work one time. I mean, I lose a lot of sleep thinking of work. There'll be time I'll be stressed out about a job the next day, so I'm laying in bed, I'm not sleeping until 2 or 3 in the morning just because I'm just stressed. And I learned that that's not the way to live. You got to have balance. You got to have balance.
Yep, you absolutely do. There's no one on their deathbed that ever says, "I wish I worked harder."
I agree. I 100% agree.
Yeah, dude. So this is interesting. I don't even know what made me think of this, but like, have you ever thought of starting another business, whether it's hobby or for fun or charity type stuff, where you're like a mentor for whether it's high schoolers or college kids, like a big brother, big sister type thing? Like, have you ever thought of anything like that? Because when I watched you go through this adventure, you inspired a lot of people. You're very unique. You come from a small town. You're blazing your own way. Like, you really are a prime example of what I look up to in many ways, and other and young kids for sure. But like, have you ever thought of anything like that from a business standpoint or like a charitable standpoint?
No, I haven't. I would love to not be the one putting it on, but I'd love to go help.
Mhm.
If someone was doing something like that, I would be right there by their side, helping with whatever's going on and being a motivator or helping with that. But I mean, like I've thought about starting another business, but like it'd be more like to make the money part. But I've honestly then I got to go back and remember my tree business takes up so much of my own time that I don't even
Mhm.
want to. I wouldn't even want to waste the time of trying to start something else. Like I'm happy with what's going on now. But like a charity thing, like I say, if I could go be part of something, I would 100% do that. But just
Yeah.
putting it on, just a lot involved.
Yeah, oh yeah, no, I for sure, I wouldn't think that it would be smart to create a full scale, company either, in addition to what you're doing. But I think there's a lot of opportunity there for you to inspire kids, and teach them sort of what's worked for you, and give them hope and motivation, and look at alternative routes to life, not just go to college, get in a tremendous amount of debt, work at a part-time job, living at home forever, and then figure it out. And again, there's nothing wrong with that, but you've chosen a route that's unique, and I find very, very cool. So all right, so I'll keep that in mind down the road.
Yeah, like I say, I would do in a heartbeat. I would come talk to people, help motivate people to come be part of something. It's just planning
Mhm.
wise, that's just a lot of planning. I mean, I guess if I had the time, or maybe in the future, if like business slows down or something like that, and I want to focus on some other things, I would never turn it down. I'm
Mhm.
all open ears every day.
So going into next year's Brookfield Classic 50K, you had a great performance in 2023. What are you going to do differently, and how are you going to train for 2024?
I'm gonna run a lot more, and I'm gonna eat. I think that was nutrition and water. Like that's what I learned from the last one. I think if I was way more hydrated, like going into the race, I would have been probably done a lot better. Because like every race I've ever done, they're all shorter races. So I just, it usually doesn't ever bother me. I can go into it basically in any kind of, you know, doesn't matter what I ate, doesn't matter how much I drank. I can still power through that 9 miles or something like that. But when I learned is over 20 miles, you really gotta prepare a little more for it. If I can get under 5 hours and 30 minutes, I'll be very happy.
Okay, yeah, and that's the course record, right? 5:30 or
Yeah.
5:29. Yeah, I can see you doing that. So for listeners, how me and you met for the very first time, I was talking to you and then the co-director Andy, and we had asked like, what's the longest you've ever run? And I think you said 9 or 10 miles. And then we said, well, do you have a strategy with food and fuel? And you said, I brought some candy.
Yeah.
And like Andy and I looked at each other and we sort of like rolled our eyes, like, what's going on? But you had also brought up something that really captured our attention right away. And you had said you did the Boilermaker in 60 minutes. And I remember Andy saying, like, oh shit, like, you can obviously run. Um, but your strategy was funny. But dude, you ran the first 18 or 20 miles in first place, and it wasn't just somewhat in first place. I think you were in first place by like 10 or 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And then obviously, for people that followed the race, you hit a wall, which is very, very common in ultra marathon. But when you already have learned from that, I don't know who would have caught you, if anybody, man. You looked, after 2 laps, you looked pretty damn good out of a 3.25 lap race. And then you ran out of glucose and water.
Yeah, that got pretty rough there for a minute. But no, what I'm trying, my goal, like if I could, if in my perfect world, I'm gonna be able, the 18 miles I did last year, I'm gonna be able to carry that on to the 30. Like that's what I would like to do, because if I feel like if I can just avoid that wall like I hit last year, I can do it. But again, like I don't want to say I'm going to do it, because if I don't do it, then it's like, then I let myself down. So I always have like a goal, but it's not a goal. It's a goal, but it's not a goal, because I don't want to, if I don't do it, I'm so the way I work is, again, I will push my body to the last extent. And like, if I tell myself I'm not going to make it, or if I set it as a goal and I don't think I'm going to make it, I'm really going to beat myself up, and it like depresses me when I don't reach my goal. Like I get pretty upset. Like when I on the bike journey to Florida, if I didn't make it, I told everybody, if I don't make it there, it's fine. I'll still go down there and enjoy my time. When I was halfway on the trip and didn't think I was going to make it there, I was ready to get on a plane and go back home and, go in my house and shut every curtain and window and hide in my room for a month.
Well, I give you a lot of credit for what you did on how you staged going into this adventure. You put yourself out there to thousands of people online, and you said, this is what I want to do, and this is my goal. And so if you had went into it secretively and just did it to do it, it would have been the same adventure, but the pressure would have been different, right?
Yeah.
And that makes a huge difference. One, you would sort of be letting yourself down. The other, whether you're letting people watching down or not is up for conversation, but like they're watching and drawing inspiration and motivation from you. And so you did something that's really hard. And when people try to stop a negative habit, they say to put yourself out there to family and friends, to say that I'm not going to drink alcohol anymore, let's say. And then the pressure's on because they're holding you accountable. You almost created your own accountability system doing that.
That's why I didn't post anything on Facebook until after I left. I was already 40 miles into the journey, because like, again, that morning I was actually supposed to leave the next day. I told everybody I was leaving the next day, like when I talked to them face to face. But I was like, I'm just going to leave. I was so nervous that like the day I was told everybody I was going to leave the next day, but in my head I was like, I'm going to leave the day before. But the reason I told people the next day is because when I woke up on the 26th, if I chickened out, I wanted one more day to not chicken out in front of everybody.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. It absolutely makes sense. Who do you draw motivation from day to day? Is there anyone that you listen to on podcasts or read in books, or a family member or friend? Like, who motivates you, if anyone?
Whenever I see people doing, there's not like some specific people. It's usually when I get caught on someone's adventure, and that's what motivates me. Other people's adventures. Like right now, I'm following this guy. He's trying to be the first guy to run the entire length of Africa, and just listening to him out there is just how motivated he is. And like, I mean, he's showing the bad times. He's showing how hard it is, but he's not letting it get him down. And that's kind of how I am. Like I'm not afraid to show people how bad it can get, but I'm not afraid to let you know I'm not going to stop.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great, Tyler. Last question before we wrap this up. If you could give advice to a high school or a college kid that has no idea what they want to do with their life, what would you tell them?
You got time. You got some time. Figure some things out. Try some new things. I mean, because like I've done a lot. I mean, like obviously I've done tree work for a long time, but I've always kept my options open for everything. So yeah, just stay motivated. You got time to figure things out. Obviously, don't slack off, and just give. It doesn't matter what it is. Doesn't matter if you're washing dishes. Doesn't matter if you're climbing trees. Give it your 100%, because it will work out in the end. It will work.
That's great advice. All right, so how can people learn more about, first off, your business, your tree service? What's the name of your business?
Losing Limbs Tree Service.
Losing Limbs Tree Service. Okay,
Yes,
that's easy to
it's an
remember.
outgoing name. I'm an outgoing person, so
Yeah, it's good.
I
And
imagine.
and you're working with a chainsaw, so that makes it even more funny.
I like jokes.
Is there, I know there's no website, but it's on Facebook, right?
Yes, correct. Yep, I got a
Okay.
Facebook page.
Okay. So if people need some custom chainsaw tree work done, that's how they can find you. What's your Instagram tag?
It's Tyler Peters. I think that's it. I think it's underscore it's Tyler Peters.
Okay. Okay. I'll
Or
post
it's
that.
underscore T Peters. I honestly can't remember right off the top of my head. I
It's
can
okay,
remember a
dude.
tree I cut down 10 years ago, though.
I'll post it. I'll look it up, Tyler. I'll post it in the show description and you'll be good to
Great.
go. Cool, dude. So we're going to wrap this up. Thank you for taking the time to join me today. We're going to get this out to a lot of people, hopefully motivate and inspire them. Thanks for everything that you do, Tyler.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for having me.
Okay.